Good evening and welcome to the coffee table. Today my voice is a little rough. I have what is called a man flu. I never knew there was something called a man flu. Till a friend of mine from the UK said, you have the man flu. So I had to go and Google it. And what does it mean? Men can't take flu. We can't take most stuff. And one thing I can tell you for sure, we were never cut out, right, to take maternity leave. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Our subject today is maternity benefits and maternity rights. So we have with us today Sahar Bandial, a lawyer and an educationist. Right? She's an academic also. She teaches at the Loves Law School. Sahar, welcome to the coffee table.
Thank you.
Right? So we have joining us is Syma Arshad, and that's Syma with an SY. Right? So we'll tell you why the SY also. Mehr, what about it? Right? You maternity. Are a mother. You've had a son many years ago. You weren't working, so it was not an issue for you.
No, my thing was that I decided not to work.
Right.
I was one of those crazy women. I should have worked, but I decided to give every hour of my day to my son. I don't regret it for a moment, but honestly, when I did work for Daily Times in 2012 for 18 months, they were very nice to me. I told them that I would only come at these hours, and they were very nice to me. But as I said, I was lucky. I didn't have to earn money to run my house. And yes, I wanted a career. I should have had a career.
I knew you were a feudal. Right?
No, I should. As I said, I'm one of those unlucky women. I should have had a career, but honestly speaking, motherhood to me, I can say it very proudly. In 2019, I call myself nothing but a mother. And I'm very happy that I devoted my life to raising a good young man.
So let's pick it up about women who go to work, right, and then decide to have a child and, decide to have their family. So Sahar, where do we start with that? There are a number of acts, right, and there are a number of amendments, if we are correct. So you were talking about 1958, right?
The main ordinance, at least in Punjab, is the Punjab Maternity Benefit Ordinance of 1958.
Right.
That was amended in 2016.
Is that martial law, after the martial law or before the martial law?
I cannot be sure.
You can't
be. I can't be sure. But it devolved onto the provinces after the 18th Amendment.
Right.
And so we have a version in Punjab. And that law was amended in 2016 to make it mandatory that no woman who is involved in the manufacturing process, a woman worker, will be made to do a task which is not conducive to her condition as a pregnant woman.
Right.
But the law...
So no lifting of weights, no hard strenuous work.
Exactly.
Right.
But that law is very restrictive in the way it exists today. It only applies to women who are involved in the manufacturing process. It only provides women 12-week paid maternity leave.
Right.
There is no requirement for a creche. There is no requirement for a daycare facility.
Right.
And there's no enforcement mechanism. So there's no claim mechanism.
Okay.
A woman does not have an avenue where she can go and say, my maternity leave was not given, or my maternity benefit or pay was not given to me. So all those aspects are lacking in the existing law, which is why you must have heard that earlier this week, the Punjab Maternity Benefit Amendment Act bill was tabled in the Punjab Assembly.
So it's with the committee there?
I think it's just been tabled. It will be assigned to a committee. So I mean, the process for it to pass, hopefully, is pretty long.
So you work with the team to draft this, right?
So I work with about 4 other lawyers, and I'd like to name them: Maheen Qasim, Nida Chaudhary, Anisa Agha, Hafza Ahmed, and Fatma Gohar.
Okay.
And it is tabled by MPA, PML and MPA, Hina.
Yeah. Hina has tabled a number of bills,
she has.
Even in the last assembly.
She has.
Right?
Yes,
so
she has been. She's a very active member of the assembly.
She is.
And she's a LUMS alumnus.
She is a LUMS alumnus, yes, she is.
Right. So Syma?
Yeah.
The employer's perspective. Do we want to employ women or do we not want to employ women?
There is no chance, there is no escape. You've got to employ them.
We have to employ them. So you work with one of the largest industrial groups in this country, the Fatma Group, right? And you were head of HR for them. And how many companies were you looking at?
So there were almost 12 companies.
12 companies.
Yes, and across 6 different industries.
Yeah.
And,
so how many employees?
So I was the head of COE, and I was reporting to Group Director HR, Arun.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest groups in the country. And I've also served other bigger groups like Descon, like service industries, service sales.
You've chosen them well.
They chose me well. It's vice versa.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that there is no escape. Having a 50% or maybe more of a population of women, so there is no escape. There, you need to have the women inclusive workplace. There is no way that you can't employ the women, and now it's a time that the economic indicators also require it. And so yes, prior to this, there were certain scenarios where women were forced not to work, but I think right now, probably it is becoming more inclusive. And by the way, I have a question to her. So what was the motivation of this amendment presentation?
I think it's quite personal because we were working women, we were having children, and you know, the choice that you are talking about, is it my child or is it my work? What if I want both? I should be allowed to have both.
Why shouldn't you want
Yes,
both?
exactly.
Why shouldn't?
I think the entire paradigm has to change. In Pakistan, there are no facilities, there are no benefits for anyone working in a private organization, for instance, no matter how. I hope it's changing. I might be wrong.
Are you talking about specifically to women?
No, men and women. You know, when you talk about an international or global organization, they give health care, they give.
No, there are a lot of benefits.
That's changed.
No, I'm saying good. So it's changing. So everything is changing. Maternity, as I was saying earlier, I still believe it's the disposability factor. As long as they keep believing that the women that are working in that organization and who are married and who will take leave are not that important for the organization, this thing will continue. I'm not saying that's the way it is.
No, but
I said Pakistanis. The mentality is changing, you know, I mean, especially abroad, and you would know more, that even from a business perspective, people are realizing that women are integral for their turnover, for their returns. Even for the economy in general, you increase women's labor participation, your GDP will
You have
rise
some
up.
numbers on that, sir.
Yes, I was reading a McKinsey report from last year, and the suggestion was that increasing gender equality would increase the GDP of the Asia-Pacific region by $4.5 trillion US.
I think I've read that.
And another IMF study suggested that the GDP in Pakistan would probably go up 30%.
Absolutely.
If the female to male labor participation ratio rises.
Well, we know we are one of the worst in the world, second from bottom, when it comes to gender parity, right? In almost all cases. And employment and economic empowerment is one of those critical aspects and elements.
It all stems from there to a certain extent. Our vulnerability as women, our dependence as women, violence, limited decision-making power.
You deal with a lot of gender issues from what I understand.
I do. So
take us through all this and saying, is it cultural? What is it? Is it lack of laws? Is it lack of enforcement? Is it a cultural bias that we have? People don't tend to see these as crimes.
When it comes to maternity benefit, because I'm going to stick to the topic, there is a lack of laws, absolutely.
Right.
In Punjab,
So it is an important element that there must be legislation.
There must be legislation which incentivizes women to come back into the workforce.
Very important.
Very, very important. True. If you want us to work, incentivize us, facilitate us. Sindh Assembly has passed an act last year which provides 16 weeks of paid maternity leave.
But Punjab government has 12 weeks.
Has 12 weeks.
So there is a law.
There is a law, but the law is limited in the sense...
For production workers.
Yeah,
right?
so the law defines woman as a woman worker. Worker is defined in the Factories Act as a woman involved in the manufacturing process. So women like me who are in the service industry, women like you, are not covered by the 58 Act, which is what the amendment wants to change. All right? And the other aspect the amendment brings in is the very important enforcement mechanism, where we may be able to approach the Payment of Wages Authority and claim our benefit or our rights. Interestingly, in the Senate, a bill has been presented which provides for 6 months maternity leave and 3 months paternity leave.
Wonderful.
So I don't know if it'll be passed, but you know the conversation
These things are
is
changing.
But as far as the corporate practice is concerned, and I want to put it very rightly on the table, that all the corporates, irrespective of all the employers, irrespective of production, non-production, manufacturing, non-manufacturing, they provide this facility of 3 months maternity leave. So
Do they do it voluntarily, or is it because of interpretation of law?
So interpretation of
Because the
law
law
is
doesn't
one
require.
thing, but I must say that even in Punjab, and when I talk about the HR fraternity, we are very, very strong and very closely knitted. And we ensure that by creating pressure groups and by creating platforms, we create awareness. And, you know, you will be surprised that I have worked with a lot of companies as a consultant as well. So the platform which I serve right now, there are almost 150 and over corporates are my clients.
PSTD, right?
PSTD.
What is it? What does it stand
So
for?
this stands for Pakistan Society for Training and Development.
And it's been around for 50 years?
Yes, it is. It has been around for over 50 years, and it's a non-for-profit society. So we have across the country clients more than 300. So I haven't come across any who does not have this policy of 3 months maternity.
I tell you, law firms don't. Law
See,
firms don't.
It's a law firm. Okay.
And look, in a
That is-
country,
that is a-
Okay.
In a country
That is
with
pain
so
close
many,
to home.
in a Muslim country where a sitting prime minister, and I think she was the first one, Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto had her first baby while she was in office. So we have very, you know, like big examples. It's not that things have always been bad or negative. Or,
Did she get leave?
no.
Was she entitled?
She was working constantly, I've been
No, but
told.
she's had a baby in office.
She has.
Right? And you can be sure of one thing, that she had maternity benefits. Right? So
I think that it's very important to have legislation. It is very important to have
Yes,
laws.
there is no question about it. So frameworks, policies, legislations, they are very important. And as I was telling you before we started this, that probably the policies and frameworks are there, but the execution and the implementation of those policies
So
have to be
understanding,
monitored.
interpretations,
Yes.
cultural acceptance, right, of all these
So
things.
I'll give you an example of the Indian law.
Yeah.
So that amendment in 2017 in
Zah, can we do that? We got to take a short break.
Yes.
We'll come back to that's an important one.
Okay.
Right? So we're going to take a short break and we're going to come back. And this is a very interesting and a very critical conversation that we all need to have. So we want you to also comment and tell us, what do you think about this subject? As an employer and as possibly somebody who's looking for a job and is also thinking, how do I start my family? Take a break and please come back. Welcome back. So Sahar, you were going to tell us about India, right? So what exactly is happening in India?
So
Do they have anything equivalent to the kind of amendment that you're talking about?
They have a more progressive law.
They have
They've
a more
increased the duration of maternity leave. I think I mentioned it early in the program. The law provides for crash provision and nursing breaks. But also, they made it compulsory that companies create awareness amongst their employees about maternity benefits and maternity rights. So that's an obligation on all establishments, not just companies, all establishments to do that. Now, what that does is it sort of provides women who are working there the information that they have certain rights and they must apply to enforce those rights. And it imposes some sort of an obligation on the establishment to disseminate this information and then eventually to abide by the law.
Right.
So maybe something like that could be done. And I agree with you, Syma, that there are other laws, maybe not so much in this particular case, but for women generally in the country, and enforcement is a major, major issue.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the number of, as I was saying, the number decreased. Women working in India decreased. This was like a couple of years ago.
Is that because people stopped hiring more women, or
Before the amendment.
It must be, all these rules, because I always believe that laws are very important, very important. We should have laws for everything, but the real change comes from society, from people. So we need to understand that there are many people now who do not mind females working even after their marriage. And what you people are talking about and what you just said, that it's still covering even not the amendment, the benefits, the maternity benefit, if it exists, it only benefits a very small number of people. I'm talking about women working for low-paying jobs.
in the
even
informal economy.
in
the blue
even in
collar,
television,
yeah,
even
yeah.
in television networks,
sure.
for instance, you know, small schools everywhere.
Small schools, parlors.
I have seen married women because I've seen makeup artists while they are doing, you know, I would be on a talk show and they would be telling me that I've little children and I've left them. My husband is working, I'm working, and I've left them with my neighbors. And there are so
children is
everybody.
different. We're talking about maternity. We're talking about babies.
Babies,
We're
yes,
talking
I'm
about
talking
that
about
first 6 months to 12 months.
Yes, I'm talking about very small.
So I will take
babies.
it from where you are saying. So yes, I agree. So establishments, as you rightly mentioned, could be at different stages. So when I talk about corporates, yes, there are implementations, there are enforcements. But when we are talking about unstructured establishments or maybe different partnerships, yes, or maybe different segments or industries, I see a gap. But when it comes to corporate, so I see a lot of enforcement happening, and that's a very good sign, and that's a very healthy sign. And I must congratulate the HR fraternity to play a very important role here in order to ensure that these benefits are going to reach to a woman.
Yeah, but it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
A better organization, right, where you have a better, more inclusive mix, where women play a very major role because they bring a certain perspective to any organization, right? They bring a certain
I
degree
would
of
actually
empathy.
add here, Faisal, that women bring a certain perspective in every aspect of life.
Absolutely.
And they are contributing to the orchestra of life.
Yeah.
So they are
peacekeeping.
They are
Different
making
ideas, more
war
productivity,
mediation. They are doing
creativity.
So I have a forum which is called #SheMatters. It's my personal forum.
Right.
And it talks about it, add your voice in the orchestra of life. So all the aspects of life, women are contributing.
So
as
from
a
butterflies to music.
From butterfly to music.
Women have always been contributing. Now they are being
So there is some connection.
acknowledged.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, they are also talking about daycare. They are not just talking about maternity leave. They're talking about daycares.
So we're talking about an environment,
Yes.
right, in which women feel more comfortable working,
And
even as young mothers.
They can bring their children.
And I think it's important to mention I think it's Punjab Daycare Fund Society, which was created in 2012.
Yeah.
I think under the Women Empowerment Package, where the government said, we fund half, you fund half.
Yes,
Let's
true.
set up daycare centers. And apparently,
Yes, I read it.
Yes, and apparently
it's very
115
funny.
were set up. But I took out the list of establishments. There were, medical colleges and hospitals. But, establishments like the establishments I work for, smaller firms or partnership concerns, none of them applied.
Yeah. But I think, picking from where you were just making a point, I think that if you want women to work, and we are saying that inclusiveness is now something which is required by the society and the economic indicators.
Absolutely.
And we have more graduate females than males,
I mean,
and it is so evident. So all I am saying is that if you want women to work, and you also want and expect women to raise families, because they are the institute of this society, they have to raise the families. That is something which is a JD given by God. You can't deny that. And you want them at work, and you want them to be a mother, but you also want that she delivers a child and come back to work. But how can she be a nursing mother?
Yeah, she can't be.
She can't
We
be.
know
So
that.
this is all
And
nonsense.
also at the same time, there's so much conversation now about the importance of nursing. All these reports about stunted children in Pakistan and 1 month nurse and all of that.
Yeah.
Where do we do it?
Yeah. You need to have the environment.
Yes,
also,
and that's why many women don't
So
work.
does this bill go all that way?
Yes,
Does
it
it
does
define
provide
all
for
those
nursing
things?
Yes, it
So
does.
it defines in detail.
In
Right? So
detail.
we won't have any anomalies like saying who's a worker, right?
No,
and what does that
Obviously,
really
we
mean?
made provision for rules to be framed, which will provide more detailed explanations about how the daycare center should be structured or what should be the exact duration of the nursing break, etc. Because the proposed bill provides for, I think, 2 nursing breaks, and then 2 other breaks to check on the child.
4 in total.
4 in total, yes. 4 in total.
But I think that these sort of, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to make sure that I make this point, and it's very important that where these facilitations and laws and regulations are very important in order to have more inclusive workplace for women, it is also important that we look at the system in whole. So it is also important that we make the structures and the systems and make people maturer in order to avail all these facilities. So nothing comes without a price. So if we want to avail these facilities as women, we need to be more responsible and more mature.
All three of
I was going to ask you.
He works with a number of women. You are an HR person. She's a lawyer who's actually come up with this bill. So as somebody who is not one of the three, I think what you people are doing is amazing. And the most important thing for me is there are millions of people even now in this age whose daughters are studying in very fancy schools, and they're getting very good, solid degrees and everything. They still believe that women are supposed to get married and have children and not do anything after marriage. As long as they don't need to work, they believe that women should only work if they need to work. There are still millions of people who believe that these things, what you people are doing, will change, will actually go a long way in making a change in the attitudes.
Yeah, and in that segment too, where there are requirements for women to work, the requirement has to be fulfilled by the will of somebody else.
Yes.
And that's the sad part.
So it's about choice also.
So, but many times people have said to me, you're so lucky your spouse lets you work. And that mentality is across the board. Women my
What
age.
do you mean? You are entitled to do what you wanted to do.
Of course. But Syma, I had a very important question for you, and we've been thinking about it, us as the lawyers who drafted this bill. Do companies like yours, the companies that you work with, find this sustainable? Setting up a daycare center, providing nursing breaks, providing 26 weeks of paid maternity leave, is that sustainable from a business perspective? Do you think we'll face a lot of opposition, or will the MPA presenting this bill face a lot of opposition from, corporate companies or other institutions who will have to fork out more money?
I'll answer that. Right?
Sure.
Look, it's all about productivity.
Yeah.
Happier people are more productive people.
Sure.
Right? A company, when it hires somebody, invests in them. Right? So you were talking about 4 months being the period of actually being employed before you're entitled to maternity benefits, right?
Yes.
So 4 months, the company would have invested in you, right?
At least, yes.
And if I don't keep you happy, you are not going to be productive. So it's not about losing a few weeks or something. Normal conventional thinking was there should be a 6-day week. But data now says a 5-day week is even far more productive.
Yes,
right? Because you are relaxed, you're
Ask
mentally...
us. Lawyers who go to the civil court on Saturdays.
So you know that productivity suffers.
Add to the...
Right, so now you can...
And I also actually want to add that yes, so productivity and happiness, they're all very interconnected. But I would also want to say an answer to her question of sustainability. I again repeat my word, that it's very important that we have the whole system approach.
Right.
Because
you're
the
right.
entities...
You were talking about earlier also in saying having the capacity to do all these things.
Because the companies, entities, they are commercial entities and the work has to be sustainable. So in order to ensure that women have these opportunities of coming back after 6 months, there has to be very strong shadowing opportunities. There has to be a succession planning available in the companies. There has to be talent pipeline. So the system has to be mature.
So you got more work coming your way.
Sure.
You should be really, really happy.
After this bill is passed, hopefully.
No, because everything has to change. What you said, people still ask you. People still say to you, you're so lucky. And as I'm saying that, there are so many young women who are told that they don't need to work. And and most of them don't work. I saw many, we talked about that one day at Lums. We were having coffee, sitting on a bench, and I commented that there are so many young women here. I was so happy.
More women
I said, I'm very surprised. I don't really see them in the workplace. And he was wondering too. He was saying,
this is true for the changes I teach. In the law schools, my law class is nearly half women, but many of them will not go into the legal profession.
I just saw, by the way, this is completely related to
Mehr is on retainer with Netflix.
Brilliant.
So we cannot do a program without her making a reference.
You see, since I don't socialize, I read and I watch movies and I spend time with children and dogs. So I can talk about human beings and what they should do. But there is a show, by the way, latest. It's about working moms. And it is about a group of women sitting with, I don't know, she has this center and she talks to new mothers. They're all talking about taking care of children, and some of them want to work, some of them are going back to work. It's about breastfeeding. It's about so many things and, taboos, things we don't talk about, things mothers don't ever talk about, especially in our society. Because as I always say, good or bad, we are very sheltered. Even the low-income people, we have people around us to take care of children if we are not there. But even in that, they showed that in the end, the woman, the protagonist, she comes back. She goes to another country to work for a big assignment, or to another city, but she comes back because the child has a fever. That's the show.
This another report that I read a couple of days back was that, as you're saying, that women do so much unpaid work.
Yeah.
Unpaid work.
Absolutely.
And apparently the figures were 4 times the amount of work that men do, unpaid work. So yes.
It's not quantified.
It is a double burden.
Isn't it social?
It is social.
No, it's also economic. It's also somebody is doing work that somebody else could have done. Right? So it has to be quantified.
Yes,
it has to.
So what I'm saying is that her work is burdened, and she's more burdened because of the fact she's required to do that work from a social perspective.
From the division of labor,
Yeah.
socially is such, or culturally is such, that the woman does the housework.
We need more men changing nappies.
Especially low income.
Absolutely. No man changes nappies.
Low income.
Trust me,
But they are
trust me, I have 3 daughters. I changed their nappies.
Yeah.
Well, I must make my husband meet you then.
Yeah.
You know the low income
And
family.
at that time, they weren't Pampers.
Yeah.
I know, I've heard
They
this
were
horror
actually
story.
So you know, you
The
mentioned
cloth type.
All right, so we're going to take we're going to take a short break.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll
Interesting topic.
We'll come
Talk
back
more
and talk
about
about nappies. So stay with us and go change some nappies. Welcome back. So before we went away to the break, we were talking about men changing nappies. And that's what we're going to talk about now. The responsibility that a father also has, right? You need to pick it up. You need to make sure that you share the burden. So let's talk about that.
Yes. So there's
Let's
a
talk
competency.
about paternity leave now.
Yeah. So there's a competency which is called nurturing. So yes, we as women are more gifted with that competency, fine. But the upbringing of the kids in terms of every capacity is the dual responsibility of each parent, be it the father or mother. So the burden has to be shared.
I think so.
Yeah.
And not just the children, the housework too.
Yeah,
You know,
Housework too.
you do
concerned
groceries
about-
this week, I'll do groceries the next
Well,
week.
I can cook.
We, all of us, you see,
So I know a couple who does that. So
Even-
3 weeks for so she also teaches at LUM. So three days in a week, the mother puts her kids to sleep, and 4 days the father.
but that's the
Sure, why
thing we're
not?
talking again. I hope this will trickle down, because my concern is still not the unorganized companies or the bad companies or the small companies or uncaring companies. I'm very concerned about something that we see every day. Low income women who come to clean our houses, the amount of work they do.
Physical, yes.
Oh my God, they do everything in their house, then they send their children to school, then they clean houses, then they go back, then they do, and husbands are working too, full time somewhere else. And they go home. I have a woman
But that's
coming from Kala
that's the
Shakaka.
burden of poverty, or that's the burden of not being
I hope
educated.
something changes for them too.
So that burden has to be shared.
Yes. So what
That
Mehr is suggesting is that, so there are different segments of the society. So if that upper segment or the middle segment is not yet aligned, what to say of the grassroots?
Absolutely.
So first of all, their alignments need to get started.
I agree.
So what does education mean then?
Yeah.
Why is it that we have segments of society increasingly educated, and we still have all these
And we
biases
yet believe
and
that
prejudices?
women are supposed to get married and raise kids only.
Why
Yes.
can't
And
men?
that husbands are very nice when they allow women to work.
There's a difference between education and liberation.
Right.
Liberate your mind, not just educate yourself, liberate your mind.
where are we failing?
And that would go for women and men. I think women of the earlier generation, or even of our generation, perpetuate certain misogynistic, patriarchal practices.
Right.
And one must change their mindsets as well.
She's right.
So mothers,
Mothers.
mothers have a responsibility also. That their sons,
Yes.
right, must not grow up the way their husbands grew up.
I was
So
telling
all
my
their
friends,
brothers-
so
the job is
raise
done.
feminists, raise your son as a feminist. She was
Raise your
complaining
son
about
as a
how
feminist.
difficult it is
Now,
to
that's
raise
an
son.
interesting one.
Raise your son as a good human being. They wouldn't need to. They wouldn't need to be a
No, I
feminist.
Earlier, Sahar made a comment that she's been told by many people that she's so lucky because her spouse has allowed. So you see Sharon Sandsberg in Lean In, she also talks about it, and she says that it is the right of every individual to exercise her own will or his own will. So why it is a goodness of the spouse that he or she lets him or her to do whatever she or
First
he
it's the
wants
father,
to do.
then it's the
Yeah,
spouse.
But I think it's for
Yes.
us, it's very cultural. It's very
It is
cultural in our
cultural.
All right,
society, this concept.
if the two of you were to come up with a hashtag today, what would that hashtag be?
Do hashtags.
Dad changing nappy.
Yes?
Liberate and change nappy.
Liberate and change nappies. So liberate yourselves.
I'll retweet
It's not
them.
even nappies anymore. It's so easy. It's Pampers. Nappies were far more complicated.
This is hilarious.
Because you have to be very careful.
From maternity benefit to nappies.
You have to be very careful
And
with the pin.
women have to play a very important role.
Yeah.
Mothers-in-law, even older sisters, aunts, everybody.
And I would second you here, and Mehr, and I would say that not only as the social role we play, also at the workplace, we have to act more maturer. We have to act more responsible, so nothing comes for free. If we want to avail
Okay,
the
I can
certain
share with you
facilities,
one particular example.
Yeah.
Right. So, one of the team members, right, one of the people who used to work in this team that now I run, now she took off a whole year, right, because she decided to have a child. So she actually resigned. She went. She had a child. And then she wanted to come back to work, right? So we had to make a provision for her to allow her flexible timings. So she could come in for half a day and she could choose whether she could come in the morning or she could come in the afternoon. But then the responsibility was hers to finish her work.
Yes.
And she wouldn't.
She wouldn't.
So, no, she wouldn't. So that became a problem.
So there are certain, solutions to this as well. So if she can't cope up with the whole work, so there can be a salary cut and her job can be cut in
But
two.
how many people, Syma, are willing to accept the salary
Yes, that's
cut?
what I'm saying, that we have to act maturer.
Well, yes, and women must be more productive.
Yes.
So that
And the
Besides the bill,
systems,
besides the bill, there's got to be a lot of evangelization.
Yes.
There's got to be a lot of
Yes,
awareness.
yes,
There's got to be a lot of workshops,
Yes.
a lot of training, a lot of understanding.
Education,
Acceptability.
conversation must change, mindset change, which is the most difficult thing.
Yes.
And I think that's a real challenge for people who are working for gender
There
equality
are
or gender
certain-
rights.
There are very good examples locally available as well of the companies who are practicing good things. I think awareness sessions with their examples could make a lot
That
of
can
difference.
change. That can make a
like
change
you-
for everyone.
And people like you can talk about how this is actually for the benefit of establishments.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is not
And also for women.
also for women.
Yes.
Because the
But
world is doing it. Right?
Because-
You were talking about Sweden. You mentioned
Sweden
Sweden.
has about, I think, 70 weeks of parental leave. That's what they call it.
For both parents?
Both parents, they can divide it up. Most Nordic countries have very, very good provision for
You
parental
also said
leave.
that males have started to say that they won't hire women.
Yes,
There are people who would say that.
There have been instances that I've heard from people where it's...
But that's a risk.
Yeah, that's
right?
a risk.
Now the question is, this is something that was in my mind in any case to ask you. When somebody comes in for an interview, right, and she fits the bill, right, she's just the right perfect candidate. But then there comes a moment, right, when she knows she's going to get the offer or the offer is made to her. Under what obligation is she to then tell the employer and saying, listen, 6 months from now, I'll be eligible for some maternity leave, right? So, is she under any obligation to do that?
So as per the law, she mentions 4 months that she has to inform.
So 4 months before she is required to
but
take
it is
leave.
also dependent on what the company policy is.
Right.
So the
I
organizations...
wouldn't know that, would
have-
I? I wouldn't know the company policy.
Yeah, so but I will be told
Right.
during my orientation
Yeah.
that that's the policy.
Yeah.
And usually the companies I have served, the policy has been 3 months. So I under no obligation, if I am at my early weeks, I am under no obligation to probably share this private information of mine.
So that's one side of it. The other side of it
the
is
legal side is that you have to work for a minimum period of 4 months with an establishment
Before you
become
become
entitled.
Okay.
And you have to give them, I think if I'm correct, 10 to 12 weeks. I have to be sure of the exact duration notice before you avail it.
Right.
But yes, if you're in the earlier period of your pregnancy, there's no legal obligation to disclose that.
Okay. So you don't have to
But
disclose.
what about the moral obligation?
Yeah. So there is an ethical moral
Absolutely.
obligation. right?
Absolutely.
And I know that because one of
Especially-
my team members actually came to me,
Yeah.
right? And she said, look, I've been made an offer, right? And I'm really now in a dilemma because they didn't ask me, right? And I didn't say anything. So they're making me an offer. And should I go and tell them now? I said, well, you should. Right? So she has gone to tell them that.
Because if you expect to be treated in a principled manner, you must, extend the same sort of...
We have We have a lot of issues in this society. After a certain age, it's hard to find a job. And if you are of the age where you're supposed to get married and have children, that becomes an issue too.
It does.
But now, as I said, everything is changing. I was just suddenly reminded of Mehr Bukhari, television. A young mother, she was pregnant. She worked throughout her pregnancy and, she gave birth. She took time off and she came back to her show. So I think things are changing slowly and steadily. Women of a certain income group have always been working in fields, in factories, in houses,
regardless of these provisions.
They've always been working.
Women have been working in all aspects of life. So it's not only about the jobs. So they have been working irrespective of whatever stage they are at their pregnancy.
Let's say the sector or the segment we're talking about when it comes to, let's say, daycare center, etc., are educated women who have spent years getting an education, money getting an education, but they don't join the labor force. Last year, this report of the Punjab Commission on Status of Women stated that less than 4% of the literate female population of Punjab works in the labor force. Most of your educated...
That is really unfortunate.
Yes. There were 3.7 or something. So women who have that asset, who have that opportunity to get an education, don't come back and work. It's a detriment to society, to the economy. Apart from being a personal detriment to the woman.
And her own potential.
We have a couple of companies who are actually trying to get lady doctors to come back to work, right? Because they've just gone off the radar, right? They're just sitting at home. And the state has spent a lot of money, right? State is, on an average, invested 4.5 million.
And there was an opportunity cost for those seats as well.
Absolutely. The opportunity cost plus... All right. What do the stars say? I know your sister is a leading astrologer.
Stars say that women are entitled to do anything they want.
Oh, they are.
They've always been.
How can I possibly even argue that?
No, but you have 3 daughters. You're in a perfect position to give an opinion on this. How you have, by the way, you have always believed in this thing. You have raised them the way
you have always believed.
I've always believed.
You have raised your daughters the way you're raising your son because he's the youngest.
But I never made any differentiation in discrimination.
So I think that the freedom...
I was asked one and said, when my son was born, I was asked and said, you have a Janasheen? I said, no. My first one is my Janasheen. Right? He was my firstborn. Right? I can't forget that moment. When I first held her.
Here comes the Shahzada.
It just can't.
The royal you.
There was no change. I mean, it is just one of those moments that you never ever go away.
It's beautiful.
So I also have 2 girls.
I know.
So I have 2 daughters. And I was literally, from some social classes.
Abira and Atika, right?
Abira and Abby and
She has 2 daughters too, mashallah.
And they are the surname at my Facebook. So my Facebook
even somebody like my sister, she's a housewife. She had 1 daughter. She has 1 daughter who's 24 and son who's 15. She was perfectly happy with 1 daughter. She never thought that she should have a son. The second one was an unexpected pregnancy. But what I'm saying is even normal domesticated women, now nobody cares.
But I would also...
Many people care, but most people...
So I also want to add on a very sort of balanced perspective to what we are talking. I think that the freedom of choice is there for everybody, but the freedom without any principle is also close to insanity.
I'm not going to agree with you. You'll get me into trouble.
I mean, I would differ. I think freedom of choice does not exist for many people.
It doesn't.
No, what I'm saying is in general, we are talking about that it should exist. But I am saying that I'm taking a neutral turn here. I'm saying yes, it exists. So, for example, take my example.
But it exists for me.
Yes. So I'm saying that
you have a very good point. But yes, freedom of choice.
Yeah. I think she's trying to say freedom of choice should be given, should be exexercised, but responsibly.
Of course.
Yes.
You have to do it responsibly.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
Look, flexi timings,
have your cake and
being
eat
able
it
to
too.
work from home. Right? Work from home means a hell of a lot of discipline.
Yes.
It does.
Right?
No, what she just said.
Because you will
I work from home.
Decrease your salary,
It
give
requires
up
tremendous
a
amount
few
of
things.
discipline.
Yes.
Right? So, before we finish the program, you want to sell your BMW or not?
Are you buying?
No, I'm going to offer it. We'll auction it.
He's asking on national television.
Yeah, sure.
You won't get a better opportunity.
Great.
So tell them about your BMW and say how much you want for it.
I'm so happy to see that a woman drives the BMW.
I know.
And she bought it herself.
Exactly. So
She bought it herself. It's
I'm
hers.
so happy to
It's for her. It's hers to
So
sell.
that's what gender equality
Yeah.
does. It gives you the buying power to buy a BMW and what's
Right.
next
So
on
what's
the card.
what's the base price?
So
Is it 3, 5, 7, 8? Which BMW?
so it's X1.
2017 X1.
Wow.
White, pristine condition.
You've got your eyes on it. It's very obvious, yeah.
I wanted to.
I think he's going to apply for a bank loan.
So I have shared my base price. with you.
Yeah, you have, and I've raised it.
Yeah.
Right. So the base price is 6 million, not a
Sure.
penny less.
6 million?
Driven
6
only
million is like
27,000
60 lakh?
kilometers.
You're selling
Driven
a
only by
BMW
a
for
woman.
60 lakh?
So if somebody is interested, they contact whom?
They write to the coffee table.
him?
Make us an offer.
He'll
So
make some
BMW
commission on
available
that.
at the coffee table.
Do you get some benefit out of this?
Of course.
Okay.
All
He's
right.
charging a commission.
Yes.
No, but
Will you not share with Mehr?
Of course I will.
Once upon a time.
We couldn't
All
make
right.
it happen.
All right, all right, all
I'm
right,
so
all right,
happy
all
Many
right.
women around here.
Please,
She has a BMW to
please
sell. I'm
consider
very
that.
happy to hear that.
Right? So please think about it. A white BMW X1 2017 in pristine condition, driven only by Syma with an SY. Right? See you again on the coffee table.